greet our friends everywhere with Chapter 24 of To Ask No Man, the story of George Mueller's incredible adventure with God. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, brought to you by the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago.
In 1865, George announced a new goal that I'd rather suspect stunned everybody, including dear, faithful Mary and loyal old Lydia, who was still living at home. Because old George declared he was out to build 2 more large buildings atop Ashley Downs and to raise the total of the children under his protection to 2,000. Seemed to me as if the chap had gotten on a merry-go-round and just didn't know when to hop off. Or was he suffering from delusions of grandeur? I didn't know, but I was pretty sure that somewhere along the line he'd be stopped from this dream of doubling his work and responsibility. The money began coming in, but when George went to buy up the only suitable land left in the Downs, he came face to face with the British Parliament. It seemed that the Bristol Waterworks wanted the land on the Downs too, and the officials of the company had asked Parliament to pass a law permanently deeding it over to the city. At first I thought George was going to blunder right up to London, but fortunately he had sense enough to go to the waterworks in Bristol first.
Well, Mr. Mueller, we're delighted to have one of our Bristol clergymen visit our city offices. It isn't often we have the honor.
If you received my letter, Mr. Hauser, I don't surprise you. You know if I am here.
We do. Yes, we do. I might add, Mr. Mueller, before I begin, it was very wise of you not to go to London first.
Well, I thought a foreigner like myself, he would...
Wasn't it, Mr. Wilkins?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Hauser.
I might say it would have been most unwise to make an appearance in London over this matter, wouldn't you, Mr. Johnston?
Yes, Mr. Hauser.
Well, I really didn't think of going up. I don't do so well with English.
We understand. Now, Mr. Mueller, are you comfortable standing? Mr. Wilkins, a chair.
Yes, Mr. Hauser.
Thank you.
Now then, I'm afraid there's been a slight misunderstanding all the way around, Mr. Mueller.
You mean Parliament won't...
Shall we begin this way? Now then, you wish to purchase land on which to build a home for the care and shelter of dependent children.
Only land left that's suitable up there.
Mr. Wilkins, include that in your minutes.
Yes, Mr. Hauser.
But you are digressing, Mr. Mueller. To continue, the Bristol Waterworks, an agent of the government of the city of Bristol, and established for these 75 years, has...
77.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Has as its purpose of being the good of all the citizens of the city. Not just a small, specialized, and selective group.
All tax-paying citizens, Mr. Hauser.
Yes, Mr. Wilkins, exactly so. Do you see, Mr. Mueller?
Yeah.
Now then, I just wanted to make it very clear that our 2 organizations, yours and mine, are so very diverse. Yours a philanthropic function, ours a function of the government. Therefore, it would be unthinkable that we should stop to dicker.
But talking a thing through isn't dicker.
Mr. Mueller, I have digressed. I began to say at the very beginning, there seems to have been a misunderstanding on your part. Isn't that your understanding, Mr. Wilkins, Mr. Johnston?
Yes, sir.
You seem to feel, Mr. Mueller, that you have some right to question our interest in the aforementioned parcel of land on Ashley Downs.
I'm not questioning, sir. I wanted to come and explain how badly I need them.
Whereas, in reality, Mr. Mueller, there is nothing to be gained by your so doing. My dear fellow, let me make it very clear and simple to you. You have been misinformed.
You don't go to Parliament?
Oh, yes, indeed we do. But only for the smallest fraction of the property you wish to purchase.
What?
Someone gave you wrong information, dear chap. We want only a tiny portion of the land you want to buy. The rest of the land we want is down the hill.
You mean
We
that...
don't want the land you want at all.
You mean the waterworks will not stop me?
That's exactly so. Oh, I knew you'd understand. I would have written back to you immediately, but I've always found that much more is accomplished when I sit down with a person and explain things logically and simply. Mr. Wilkins,
Yes, sir.
won't you show our gentleman of the cloth to the door?
Well, now, really, could it have happened to anybody but our George? Yet he still didn't have his land, and he knew it. There was still a very stubborn tenant who had a 2-year lease to cope with.
Blimey, I don't see why you even asks me, Reverend. It's my land by tenant rights, and I don't aim to give it up.
But, Mr. Crombie, please listen to a little bit of reason. You don't use the land for anything.
Don't make no difference.
If you had a cottage
Don't
there...
need no cottage to make it mine. I paid for it, and that makes it legal. Ask anybody.
Yeah, but if you had a little garden there...
Used to say I weren't. I've been laid up for the rheumatism all winter. But come next year, I might just have myself a garden.
You could make a garden anywhere.
That's right. Look around you, Reverend. Could I have one here down on Blackheart Street? Could I just?
Then rent some other land. Crombie, the sooner I build this orphanage, the better it is for 1,000 children. Think of it, 1,000 children. Children that might starve or freeze right down here on Blackheart Street.
Not my children, they ain't.
But maybe children you know.
So why should I pay for them?
Pay for them?
That's right. Oh, I know it's a pity all the young and suffer what don't have a proper home. And I know it's good what you've done for 'em here in the city, Reverend. But you got the money to do it. While I just scrapes me little bit together from me work at the factory, and me missus and me rents this land. Open for a garden, we do. We paid for the land, 2 years of rent we paid. And it ain't the first year yet. Why should we give our money away?
But you don't give anything.
Sure I does.
You mean you... Mr. Crombie, every shilling you paid as rent on that land, I give it back to you.
But I paid to Ed for the next 2 years.
Naturally. So I pay you back every shilling.
Why didn't you say so, Reverend?
I took it for granted. Mr. Crombie, it's a bargain?
Why, sure it's a bargain. I'm not one for starving little children, Reverend. But it didn't seem quite cricket, you know. The missus and me losing 2 years of rent.
But the price of the land was still troublesome. Archibald and Rumson Limited quoted £7,000. George felt that he couldn't pay more than $5,000 unless the owner would come down.
I won't come down. Not 1 shilling. 7,000 is my price.
That land isn't worth a shilling more than 5,000.
Ha! Not worth it, eh? Well, then why are you so anxious, my friend?
It suits my purposes. For that, I give you 5,000.
7,000.
If you don't take my offer, you have a hard time to find a buyer.
Oh, you can't fool me.
Ever walk there in the spring? An acre of mud.
7,000.
With a little coaxing, it could go underwater. 5,000.
6,500.
9. I can't pay it. 5,200. No higher.
You are a robber. 6,200.
5,200.
6,000, and that's final.
5,500. It isn't worth it.
5,900.
5,500.
5,007.
Sold. I pay 5,700 pounds, not a pound more.
You get a bargain.
You get rid of a mistake. Now here, let's stop quarreling and sign the papers.
So George got his land after all, but somewhere he had miscalculated on expenses, because when he went to the contractor, he ran into some real difficulties.
So why'd you come to me if you weren't ready to build?
But I thought I was.
I'm a busy man. I got other jobs to do.
I know all that.
And plenty of other customers. I can't waste my time like this, Mr. Mueller.
I never intended to waste your time.
Then when did you try to get me out of here if you weren't ready to start building?
I made a mistake.
You've done a lot of building in the last 10 years, haven't you?
Yeah.
So how did you make such a mistake? They told me you're a good businessman. Why'd you talk about building before you had the money?
I tell you twice already. I didn't know it cost more to build one house now and one house later. I wanted to get started, and I had the money for one.
You wanted to get started, sure. What about me?
Well, I didn't...
Didn't think anybody could reason it out. It takes time to get carpenters out here and get them started on a job.
Yeah, I know now.
If they do 2 jobs at once, you save money. If not, the bills start going up, up, up.
Yeah, I know.
So what you're saying to me is that you have money to build one of these orphanages now, but you don't have the money to build two.
Just so.
And you can't afford to have me start one building now. Finish it. Take my money and then come back and do the next one when you get the money for it.
Nine, it costs too much that way.
You're wasting my time, Mr. Mueller.
So there's just one thing to do. Say to you, go home and come back when I have money to build two at once.
Yes, fine time to tell me that. When do you figure this will be?
I have no idea. Right now I have 30,000 pounds. I need 40,000.
I know. When do you figure you'll get it?
I really don't know, sir. That all depends on God.
Well, the disgruntled contractor went home, and another year dragged by. The money trickled into the building fund very slowly. Then on May 26, 1866...
Well, Jim, there she goes. The first shovelful. The ground is broken.
Just like I said at the beginning, Mr. Mueller.
How's that, Jim?
Money came in slowly, but eventually it all got here.
You're right. Sometimes a trust that works slowly is as good as one that wants action right away. You remember that?
Yes, sir. Look at those men work. Must be 60 or more down there.
It's a big job.
Biggest building that's gone up in Bristol for a year or more, isn't it?
Yeah. Such a monument to prayer.
Yes, sir. Say, there's your wife coming up the hill.
Where? I told her to stay at home. She's been coughing all week.
It's Lydia, too. See, down there by that tree.
Dave wouldn't miss it. Such a pair they are. Too bad your wife couldn't come, too.
She's running a fever again all week. Say, look at that dirt fly, sir.
Must be the nasty weather. Bad for coughs. What's this? Mary climbs the hill? I wish she wouldn't.
Where's Lydia? I thought she was with her.
She still watches, down by the tree still. It's good diversion. I'm glad.
Something's wrong, sir?
Lydia, I never know. Is she happy or isn't she? She always was such a dreamer. Now she dreams they're locked inside herself.
She seems happy. At least when she's with the youngsters, anyway.
They're her whole life. I wish Lydia had found a nice husband. Now she's 35 or so, and well, it looks like she won't. Sometimes I look at her from far off, like now, and I ask myself, what about the little Lydia who wanted a wide open place with the breezes and chanced to smell the sea air once in a while? Is she really happy?
George! Morning, Jim.
Morning,
Isn't it great?
Oh, Mary.
I'm all right.
I told you, stay at home and keep warm.
Miss this? Not if they have to carry me up that hill.
Better take care of that cough, Mrs. Mueller. My wife didn't, and she's running a fever now.
You see, Mary?
Now, don't start in on me, George. Don't tell me I work too hard.
You do. Carrying blankets, making altos, dresses.
I love it.
There, you see? Mary, take care of yourself, for my sake.
Oh, George, don't be so sentimental. I'll live to see your orphanage finished and the curtains hung. After that, well, we'll worry about that when it comes.
It took 4 years to build the orphanage, but on January 6, 1870, when George was about 65, he opened the door of the 2 new gigantic buildings on Ashley Downs. Now he could take care of 2,000 homeless boys and girls. But just 3 weeks later, in the middle of the night...
Lydia! Lydia!
Miss George, I'll be all right.
Lydia! Lydia, kommen Sie her! Schnell, schnell! Your mother, she is much worse! Lydia, schnell, schnell!
And so we conclude Chapter 24 of To Ask No Man, the story of George Mueller's incredible adventure with God. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, which come to you transcribed from the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.